Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense. I'm on this whole kick of having guest hosts and guests for the hosts, right? So we're excited about Alicia being here tonight. It's been a long time since she's actually made a video appearance here at Drash Ministries.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. We won't no guilt trip. So Alicia, I want to get right into it because got lots to chat about.
Okay.
You sword fight.
I do.
Can you explain to our listeners the parameters for a normal sword fighting competitional moment?
Well, the very basics of it is quality hits, quality cuts. Hit your opponent, but don't kill them because we're friends. So, if you've got someone taller, someone smaller, there's, the gentleman's code, so to say. Don't completely whack-a-mole the poor little person. And little people, don't, headbutt them in the groin, just general gentleman's rules.
Beautiful. Okay. And so there's this conduct, right? Mm-hmm. Conduct of things. And then there's also the swords, the weapons, all the things that you have, right? Mm-hmm. But then there's also a field of combat.
Yes.
Right? So explain to our listeners as well, what does the normal competitional field of combat look like when you're sword fighting?
Well, there's usually a fighter on one. So there's a ring, which either a ring or this past weekend it was more like a rectangle. But either way, there's a ring, one fighter here, one fighter there, and there's a judge, a main judge with a stick, and then there's 3 or 4 people around that have a red and blue for the red fighter, blue fighter, and the middleman with the stick yells, fighter, judges ready, fighters ready, fight, and then the two go at it, and it's go in and you combat one another, and then either the judges walking around or the main debilitator, I think that's the word, makes a call. They go halt if they see a good hit. Both fighters disengage and walk back. The middleman goes judges, and the judges determine where the hit was. And then depending on where the hit was, it's, points to red, points to blue. And it's like 7 points or 3 to 5 rounds, depending on the rule set. But whichever one is hit first, 7 points or round number match.
Beautiful. Okay. And how much space do you normally have within that circle on a normal, regular time?
It's hard to say. I would say maybe a good ring would probably be like a car and a half length.
Okay, so if you got a car and a half length, so let's say 8-10 feet, right? When you're going around in this whole thing, if at any time you feel like, hey, listen, I'm a little nervous, a little scared, a little whatever here, can you step out of bounds?
No.
Can you step out of bounds and get punished for stepping out of bounds?
Oh, yes.
Right, but so you can escape if you want to.
You forfeit your match.
So
there's a warning, and then there's a match forfeit.
But there still is this concept of, if I really desperately need to, I can just get out of this battle.
You can,
right?
yes.
Right? But you don't. You lose the battle. You lose all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think the parameters that you share are crazy, right? There's a little sword fighting competition. It's you, the opponent, and 4 other people.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people to be, right? Like in wrestling matches, there's one guy who's the ref. In tennis, there's one umpire. There's just one of everything. In a sword fighting match, there are 4 people.
And that's 4 opinions on what they deem as quality, what they define as a thrust, what they define as a cut. When it comes down to it, the guy in the middle with the stick telling you to fight or halt, they're the main judge, but they take into account what the refs saw.
So now you go to a tournament and you're kind of thinking this is the way it's going to be, right? You practice for that, you do that, you're ready to go, right?
Yeah.
All right, so what happens when you show up to a fight and instead of it being like that, there's an actual physical cage. And now you're cage fighting. what changes in the dynamics of fighting when a cage comes up around you?
Well, there's two kinds of the cages. There's the full cage. So if anyone's seen MMA, there's the actual octagon itself, and then there's this past tournament I went to where the arena was half a car length. So as we're talking about the cage match itself, whether it was the exact same space or not, having the actual cage itself being elevated up on a platform kind of made it seem more exciting and more important almost.
But undoubtedly the parameters change, right?
Yes, you couldn't step out of ring. You got thrown into a fence.
Right. There's no longer there's no way for you to get out, right? There's no way for you to get out of this battle. Yeah. Right? You're in it, you're stuck, and you're going to finish it.
I mean, you could get thrown in. We were fighting on pavement initially. Well, this was on an elevated platform, so we were on wood. So there was some give to it. So you're not allowed to throw someone onto the pavement.
Right.
But throwing onto wood was a thing. So there's some pretty good. So the parameters definitely changed. There were still the normal rules, but you had a lot more freedom to do things.
Now, was there with inside this ring still you, an opponent, and 4 judges in that space?
Sort of. So there was me, the other fighter, the main person with the stick, and then technically only 2 judges. One specifically scoring the opposite opponent, and then one specifically making scores for myself. So rather than having 4 people, it was, okay, you keep track of this person, you keep track of that person. And it was and here's the difference. So with the normal fighting, it's, fight, you go at it, you hit, halt, you step back. The cage match was continuous fighting. Minute and a half break, 3 rounds. So whereas normally you go in, fight, you make a hit, and then you step back, you have a chance to breathe. Well, this was a minute and a half of going at it. And it's not just thrusts or cuts. Like, I got into some wrestling, I got into some throwdowns, like... It exerted a lot of strength. And by the 3rd round, me and the poor girl, we were both so gassed.
Totally different experience.
Oh, completely different. So much fun, though.
All right, so let's Christianize this. You ready?
Okay.
All right, so in life in general, those people are watching Nightly Nonsense, right? They're trying to live out this Christian life, and they're used to parameters.
Yes.
Right? God has put certain parameters within, and they've got lots of room within that parameters to go. And they can, at any time, they can choose to escape, right? Mm-hmm. They can just be like, I'm done with this moment. I'll pick it up next moment, right? And get out, right? Yeah. There's consequences for all that. You lose the match, right? There's consequences for us as Christians, right? Mm-hmm. But you, as a Christian young woman, you have this whole thing of that you and God are trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. And you got all these parameters. You got all this stuff happening around you, and you're used to negotiating through it, right?
Yes.
Right? You have your day set up. You know what you're going to be doing. You can have your week set up. You can do all this stuff, right? Yep. Right? But then every once in a while, God has a cage match set up for you, right? A lion's den moment.
Yes.
Right? So Daniel, it was great. Daniel was known as this great godly man, right? Mm-hmm. But Daniel got to have the best of the food. Daniel got to have the best of the kingdom. Daniel got to have a whole bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of people who look and say, like, well, it's easy to be a really godly person when you have the best of everything, and you're third in charge, right, of a kingdom.
Yeah. It's best to, when you have, 30 second, or you have like a 10-second hit, and then you step back for, a minute while they deliberate on your hit. So you got time to breathe, but not in a cage. It was go.
So I love that. I love that analogy, right? Because in our real life, we can have a conversation with a person. Mm-hmm. We can pull back, calibrate where we are, what we're doing for the day, right? We can figure it all out. Then we can re-engage.
Yes.
We can re-engage here. Yep. We can do all kinds of things, right? We can take a time out, take the rest of the day off, and be like, yep, not re-engaging at all, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I love what you said. When you're in the cage, it's a minute and a half, and there's no recalibrating.
No. If you get into a kerfuffle with someone, you can step back momentarily, but the clock is still going.
Yeah. Sometimes God puts us in those moments, right? Those lion's den moments where all of a sudden we don't get to recalibrate. We have to fight,
Yes.
right? And we have to fight and fight and fight, and for our life. Like it's great. You were in a practice competition type of a thing. What if that had been real life?
It definitely taught a lot of things because talking about where God puts you in a situation where you can't really get out of it and you got to fight for your life. Well, that was kind of how it was, because I've never really done the sport. There's not much close combat with it because there's some grappling, but that's usually when you get like really up close and personal with people. I tend to stay away from it because everybody's taller than me and I really don't want to hit the ground. That's not very much fun. But it was close quarters and you had to figure out, I don't have training. I've never trained in close quarters. So she and we got in it. Like I had a hold of her sword, she had a hold of mine. And at one point we were doing one of these. So, if you're trained to fight technically from a distance and you're up close with someone and you're sitting there and you're both of equal height and weight trying to throw the other person, unbalance the other person, that was the most exhausting part.
Sometimes we find ourselves in a cage fight with the enemy, and we're exhausted.
Yes.
So how did you make it through that third round when you're exhausted?
Oh, I looked at the finish line. I was like, the finish line is right there. I just have to get past this. And as it got closer to the end, people were cheering. It was like, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 10 seconds. And they're like, make it count. And they're like cheering it on. So they're also egging you on.
Yeah.
So, you've got the opponent or the enemy in front of you. And then you got the people, whether they're for you or against you, they're still cheering either way. And then at the end, it's like, okay, let's go out with a bang. And it's like, you muster up that last bit of courage. And like the enemy beat you down. And you're just completely gassed. Like, I can't do this. I don't think I can do this. Well, you know what? You get that little bit up in you and you just go for one final throwdown and you take her with you. And then you just like sprawled out, panting, exhausted.
So you put all this energy.
Yeah.
Right? You've trained hard, you put this energy into it, you fight the battle, right? You go through all of these things that you said. And then at the end of the match, right, at the end of the moment, both of you are standing in the middle, right? And they declare a winner?
Yes.
Right? They declare a winner, right? Can you win without being declared a winner?
Absolutely.
How does that work?
It's what you learn. So even though with the match I didn't win it, I heard feedback from people that I did good. So, and I thought I held my own pretty well for never doing it before. But what I won from it was I won what to do when you're up close and personal with somebody. So even though I didn't come home with a little thing, I won knowledge because now I know what to do if I find myself in that situation again. If I find myself hand in hand with somebody, rather than just sitting there and try to flip them, I can cross my arms and push them up, and use the weight against them rather than sitting there and, trying to put your weight, try and gain an advantage over your opponent. So I was sitting back and I was thinking, I was playing everything over my head. It's like, what could I have done differently? I could have probably done this. And then I did research and I'm just pre-planning what can I learn from it. And that alone was a victory.
So is it possible that you could go into a cage fight? Let's say you went in with a much taller, much bigger...
I actually want to.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Is it possible that you could go into a cage fight knowing just the parameters of this thing means I'm probably not winning this, but I still want to do it. Yes. I still want to learn from it.
Absolutely.
See, and I think that's the, as we wrap this up, I think that's the whole thing. I find this whole, what you did fascinating, right? Because I think it parallels Christianity, right?
Yeah.
We're so used to our style and what we're doing and how our parameters are. And every once in a while, God shakes up everything by saying, let's put you in a cage and see what you got. Where you can't escape, where you can't run, where you can't do this one. And again, sometimes he may allow us to do that, knowing we're not going to win right? We're not going to get our hand raised in victory. It's about learning. It's about the training. It's about winning in his eyes.
Yeah, and not only that, it was 2 shakeups, because if you're used to a ring a car and a half length, and your ring is half a car's length, which is what the first thing was. The cage match was voluntary, but I was like, let's do this thing because I'm crazy like that. But like, so there was 2 changes in that, but it's also, you know, the learning aspect of it is, can you handle defeat?
Yeah.
You know, because making this more of a biblical parallel, while the ultimate victory is Jesus.
Yeah.
And heaven, there are battles that we are allowed to, that God allows us to lose, because that is what builds our character. And, you know, with the other girl winning and me not, I could take that one of 2 ways. I could take that as jealous and upset at myself, at her, at the situation, at the calls, at whatever it may be. Or I can look at it as, that was a good fight.
Yeah.
We went through it very well. I learned a lot. I know what not to do from now. And at the end, she and I were sitting and talking, drinking waters, and I even gave her some feedback on like what she did good, and, you know, if she improved upon XYZ, she'd be a formidable opponent. So encouraging each other on that.
Good deal. Well, listen, we're gonna leave it right there with
Yes.
Nightly Nonsense. You can chat with Alicia about all this stuff. She can put it all together. But we just want to remind you that, listen, sometimes God actually does place you in a cage, right? Sometimes he places you in a pretty intense situation, changes the parameters up a little bit, right? To see how much you've learned and to see what exactly you can do under pressure, right? And again, we tend to think that when we choose our battles, God says, yeah, no, sometimes I'm going to throw you in a lion's den and see what you can do.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, hey, we'll see you next time. Nightly Nonsense.
Bye.